Hello there, how are you guys? In this video, I want to give you some tips on how to analyze this new topic, which is ellipses and structural condensation. Before we begin, let's establish what are they. Ellipses and structural condensation are devices of simplification and reduction, and we use them in order to avoid repetition or to condense information that we share with other speakers. Okay, in the first place, let's see ellipses. Ellipsis is a device of reduction, and we use it to omit information that can be recoverable or can be understood from the linguistic context. This means that the speakers share some information and some parts or some elements of the written text or the utterances in spoken language can be removed without altering the meaning of major clauses. We have two types of ellipses. One is textual ellipsis and the other is situational ellipsis. We're going to see them in detail. First, let's go for textual ellipsis. And we use textual ellipsis whenever we omit information or elements within a clause that are close in the nearby text or in the recent speech act. For example, do you want to stay in or go out tonight? Here we have a mark that shows us where ellipsis happened or occurred, and this is the structure or the elements that were omitted within this clause. Do you want to? In this example, we can see that the omitted elements are close or they can be found in the nearby text. Situational ellipsis, on the other hand, refers to elements or constructions that cannot be found in a nearby text or in a nearby speech act. In order to know what has been eliminated or what has been erased from the clause, we need to recreate a situation or a linguistic context. For example, saw Susan the other day. The element omitted in this clause is the subject pronoun I. In this case, we assume that both speakers know each other and both speakers know Susan. Here we have another example. Sure? In this case, what has been omitted is a verb and a subject. In this case, we also assume that both speakers know each other and they know the content of the message. In situational ellipses, the elements that are mostly omitted are pronouns, auxiliary verbs, articles, or some other function words. Now let's see structural condensation. We use structural condensation to reduce the amount of words or the length of the information covered within a message by replacing one element or one structure within the clause by another structure which is generally shorter. A good example for structural condensation is the use of pronouns to reduce full noun phrases. To illustrate, in the example, we borrowed the tennis rackets when Bonnie was there. We used them twice, I think. We are using the pronoun them to reduce the length of the information covered in the previous sentence, the tennis rackets. Sometimes we can reduce a structure by changing that element for another completely new and different structure. For example, who took that picture? I did. In this case, we are using a proform, the word did, to replace the whole structure took the picture. Finally, let's talk about the positions where ellipsis or structural condensation may occur. We have three possible positions for ellipsis and structural condensation to happen within a clause. Those positions are initial position, medial or middle position, and final position. In the case of initial position, note that the mark of ellipsis happens at the beginning of the clause. In the example, are you going to wear these trousers or the ones that I gave you? We have structural condensation occurring in the middle of the second clause. Note that this example is composed by two clauses. Are you going to wear those trousers? Connected by the coordinating conjunction, or the ones that I gave you. We'll see this example later. In this case, the word ones is reducing the length of the structure trousers. Now let's see how to analyze ellipsis or structural condensation within clauses. The things you need to bear in mind are the following. First, you need to analyze which device was used to condense information or to reduce some information, either if it's something that is missing in the case of ellipsis, or a structure that was changed by another new structure to condense the information. Once you have identified the device used, in cases of ellipsis, you need to decide the type of ellipsis. If the information omitted can be recoverable from the nearby text, you'll have textual ellipsis. If you barely have information related to the context and you need to recreate a linguistic context to get the information related to the omitted element, then you would have situational ellipsis. Once you identified the type, describe what was the structure that was omitted. Finally, mark and describe the place where ellipsis occurs. If what you have found was structural condensation, then you need to define which is the structure that was used to condense the information, which was the condensed information, that means which was the structure that was replaced by another one, and finally describe the place where condensation occurred, that means deposition. Next, we are going to see some examples related to ellipsis and structural condensation and how to analyze these cases. The first example is sure. Please note we have marked ellipsis at the beginning of the clause. As we said before, as we barely have information related to the context of this situation, we need to recreate a linguistic context. This clause is an example of situational ellipsis. The elements that were omitted in this case are you at the beginning of the clause, so they are placed in initial position. Let's see another example. Are you going to wear these trousers or the ones that I gave you? In this case, we have two examples of reduction. The first is ellipsis, and this is textual ellipsis because the information can be recovered from the nearby text. The element that was omitted is are you going to wear? And it happens at the beginning of the second clause. Please note that this is an example of two clauses joined by coordinating conjunction. Are you going to wear these trousers or are you going to wear the ones that I gave you? Continuing, within the second clause we have a word that condenses information. This is the case of structural condensation where we use the word ones to replace the word trousers in order not to repeat the same structure. This structural condensation happens in middle position because it is following the first element within the second clause, the. Finally, are you selling the car? No, I've decided not to. This is an example of textual ellipsis. In this case, we can recover the information in the nearby text, the information related to selling the car. The elements that were omitted in this case are part of the to infinitive clause. To sell the car, I've decided not to. And lastly, we can say that in this case, ellipsis happens in final position at the end of the clause. Okay, guys, that's all. If you need further information, please contact me. See you.